Customer experience is the organization's ongoing effort to know and live the mission, but also to know, educate, and serve the organization's customer. Once you've started with your CX insight, that's the needs, the wants, the attitudes, and the perceptions of your customer, now you can go into your CX or your customer experience approach. This is our story. This is what we want to accomplish for the customer. So this is how we want them to think when they're done using our service, or how we want them to feel after they attend an alt night, or how we want them to respond because of an SGA chapel. So a customer experience approach is about how do we want them to think, how do we want them to feel, and how do we want them to respond. Now, to break that down into kind of learning objectives, when you're trying to help people understand how to think, you're giving them awareness. So that's the basic level of learning. And then after you go from there for feeling, that is more of buy-in. Because when people buy in, they feel it. It's like, man, I love the Indianapolis Colts. I'm bought into the Indianapolis Colts. So that's buy-in, that's feel. But responding is the highest level that we want with our customer, and that is how we want them to respond to us. And that is ownership. So if we're looking at an alt night or Renova, we want them to think that we want them at Renova, or we want them to think that we want them at the alt night. We want them to feel that Renova is all about the customer, or the alt night is designed specifically for their enjoyment. And we want them to respond by coming back to Renova, or respond by coming back to another alt night or another cab event or another campus experience event. So your customer experience approach is your story. And when you're giving your story, you can lay out the different touch points. And touch points are those indirect or direct interactions with the customer. So at Renova, it's when they see the baristas working behind the counter. That's an indirect touch point. Or when they give their order, that's a direct touch point. Or when they watch the barista making their drink, indirect. Or when they get their drink from the barista and the barista calls them by name. These are touch points. Touch points help build the story. So the CX approach is our story. How do we want the customer to think? How do we want them to feel? And how do we want them to respond? This really sets our goals for our group, for our team, or that specific event or program. And never forget, it starts with the CX insight, so that it starts with the picture of who the customer is, but then we want to take them to how we want them to think, feel, and respond. Because customer experience is all about an organization knowing and living the mission, but also knowing, educating, serving in the customer. And that's what CX approach does. It doesn't just know them, it educates them and it serves them.